country, the center of the Asian Silk Route, once again taking advantages of its unique geographical location. Now this speaks volume of our vision, where we want to be, and it's right time a prestigious institute like Kadirgam Institute talk about that field. And in that also we talk about our, in our quest to be the wonder of Asia, we talk about 5 hubs: knowledge, maritime, aviation, power and energy, and commerce. And if you ask from the naval point of view, we can play a role in almost all these 5 hubs. Maybe aviation hub little less, but even for aircraft to operate, they need fuel. So we have to ensure that the fuel comes into the country. So we, the Navy, has a greater role to play in the quest to harness the resources of this gold mine waiting to be exploited, the future of our country. So with this time, with this I come to the conclusion of my presentation. You didn't show me the fact, right? No. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to me and giving me this opportunity. It was a wonderful time to be here. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Dr. Singharan from Sudhir, and he'll be speaking about Sri Lanka and the sea, the environment as a geopolitical tool.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vice Admiral Kundagay, Mr. Executive Director, and Mrs. Sukandi. And first of all, say it's lovely to be here. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Sangrabe Gunasekara for his imagination and his creativity in staging this conference. To encourage new thinking, which is what the Kadirgam Institute was set up to do, you have to have the ability to listen and the self-confidence to listen. And I'm delighted to say that the Lakshmi Kadirgam Institute has the ability to listen and the self-confidence, and this will drive it much further forward. I would like to wish Mr. Abhi Gunasekara further success in his very meaty crimes. Now we've been talking about the future of our country. The question is, where does it lie? What do we do with it? Well, these are some of the things I thought about. Sri Lanka is an island. What is an island? It's a body of land surrounded by water. Like Japan, like the UK, Sri Lanka is surrounded by the sea. The sea, therefore, forms its country. This is our environment. However, Sri Lanka has never really exploited its potential before. As Vice Admiral was saying, we have never really seen it in this light. As a result, we have never really seen its context. When you're surrounded by the sea, what do? You make use of it and what lies within it. An idea of the exclusive economic zone as defined by the law of the sea gives us an idea of its potential. Where Sri Lanka can create its own vision, make a difference and set the tone. The seas to Sri Lanka's west, east and south provide one of the most diverse and interesting marine environments in South Asia. These seas house several living ecosystems and many rare and threatened species. They contain mangrove swamps, coral reefs, they're home to dugongs, whales and dolphins. These are all areas of international concern and have been the subject of international initiatives. Mammals, coral reefs, mangroves, tropical fish, these are all living things, living ecosystems. As living things, they attract the attention of other living things, human beings. They move communities, countries and decision makers. They are a key to world opinion. As such, they are dynamic levers and tools with the power to influence and to shape. These levers can function as instruments with the capacity to attract global interest and foster engagement worldwide. In short, they can serve as potent geopolitical tools. These tools perhaps may give Sri Lanka the capacity and the capability which it badly needs at present. The ability to reach out and to engage, to represent, to persuade, and perhaps to influence. Many of the ideas explored in this talk are the result of recent research conducted by products of the Bhandaranaike Center of International Studies and the Lakshmi Kadirgam Institute's Young Global Shapers program. I myself have been very influenced by the work of Sashiram Ambegowda on Sri Lanka and public diplomacy, the art of strategic thinking and communication. Now, Ambegowda argues that environmental concerns transcend national boundaries, political divisions, and geographic lines. The negative impact of an environmental crisis has to be endured by all. Often as not, it takes more than one country to tackle it. The purpose of environmental diplomacy is to bring countries together on common ground where they share an overriding mutual interest. In this field, there are still opportunities, perhaps compelling reasons to engage and reach agreement. The conservation and management of natural resources are of utmost importance, not just to one country or one region, but for the global community as a whole. Obtaining international support to conserve Sri Lanka's natural resources and working in partnership with governments and international organizations could be a very effective political and diplomatic tool. There is the potential to reach out over the heads of hostile governments to the general public of those concerned. This could serve to offset the influence of other pressure groups and lobbies like the LGBT diaspora in the West. At present, it is these pressure groups which hold the higher ground. They are the motive and the dynamic forces. At the same time, such avenues could also lead to the strengthening of political ties with other governments. Negotiating treaties and agreements through bilateral or multilateral cooperation with states that share common environmental concerns will help build new relations. It will break new ground. In the face of many of the crises which have all but overwhelmed Sri Lanka since the end of the Iran War, Sri Lanka's diplomacy has tended to be reactive rather than proactive. This is one of the few areas left where Sri Lanka can take the initiative, where she can be truly proactive. The largest marine protected area on the island is the Bari, near Kalpiti. It is one of Sri Lanka's great living treasures, her largest and perhaps her last pristine coral reef. These waters are home to more than 300 species of fish, and they contain 138 varieties of stone coral. Possesses the greatest biodiversity of any reef in South Asia. This gives it incomparable scientific value, and it has immense environmental, economic significance for the whole region. The International Coral Reef Initiative, the ICRI, describes itself as an informal partnership to preserve coral reefs and their related ecosystems around the world. Its partners are governments, international organizations, and non-government organizations. It was launched at the Convention of Biological Diversity in 1994 and at a meeting of the UN Commission on Sustainable Development in 1995. Its stated objective is to preserve coral reefs and their related ecosystems. The ICRI was originally initiated by the governments of Australia, France, Japan, Jamaica, Philippines, Sweden, UK, and USA. Its aims were to identify marine ecosystems exhibiting high levels of biodiversity and productivity, and to provide the necessary limitations on the use of these areas through a designation of protected areas. Priority should be accorded to coral reef ecosystems, estuaries, temperate and tropical wetlands, especially mangroves, and also to seagrass beds. Since then, the ICRI has been joined by many new partners, governments, UN organizations, development banks, and environmental NGOs. As a partnership, it has proved a potent instrument for international cooperation and collaboration. The ICRI Secretariat is hosted by its members and rotates every 2 years. Since 2004, the Secretariat has been co-chaired by a developed and a developing country. Presently, the co-chairs are Belize and Australia. The potential for Sri Lanka is very clear. The format too seems ideal. Why not Sri Lanka for the Secretariat if Kalpiti is the base? For the past few years, Sri Lanka has been locked in a long and bruising struggle with the UN. On one front, it appears to be a struggle that perhaps we cannot win. However, there are many other fronts on which we can engage, collaborate, and perhaps make some headway. The UNEP is the body which coordinates the UN's environmental activities. Founded in 1972, its activities embrace the marine and terrestrial ecosystems. The UNEP has played a significant role in developing international campaigns and competitions. It has sponsored a number of successful projects, preservation of the marshlands in war-torn Iraq, and in 2007 it declared the Year of the Dolphin. One of the projects to which the UNEP has given high priority is the implementation of the International Coral Reef Initiative. In 1980, Growing public concern calls the UNEP and the FAO to draw up a global action plan for marine mammals. This plan aims to bring governments together to agree and harmonize their policies for marine mammal conservation. As top-level predators in the food chain, marine mammals have a tremendous impact on their ecosystems, and they are important indicators of the health of marine environments. The UNEP is in the process of evaluating, revising and updating its global plan of action for marine mammals. But the current goal is to develop international treaties and conventions. These treaties and conventions serve as multilateral environmental agreements, MEAS, and they function as important vehicles and mediums. One of the most important of these is CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Activated in 1975, CITES is an international treaty involving 177 governments. The international trade in wild animals, plants and marine life is now a multi-billion-dollar business. It is crucial that such trade be managed in a sustainable and legal way. And CITES is widely recognized as one of the most effective, one of the best enforced international conservation agreements. It offers protection to more than 30,000 species around the globe and has played a key role in protecting the extinction of numerous plants and animals. The Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, CMS, is another instrument which the UNEP relies heavily on. The CMS aims to conserve territorial, marine and avian migratory species throughout their range. Concluded under the aegis of the United Nations Environmental Programme, it is an intergovernmental treaty concerned with the conservation of wildlife and habitats on a global scale. Since 1983, when it entered into force, its membership, you can see, has grown steadily to include over 100 parties from Africa, Central and South America, Asia, Europe, and Oceania. The CMS also applies to migratory birds and pelagic or ocean-going species. Every year, Sri Lanka's coast, wetlands, and wildlife parks attract a vast variety of migrant species. What has not perhaps received so much publicity is that the island's marine environments also draw a range of seagoing and coastal species, such as the brown noddy, the Persian shearwater, nomads of the sea. These birds are found only in the deep sea and hardly ever come to shore. The shearwater, for example, breeds in the Arabian Peninsula and roams right across the ocean. One of the rarest mammals on Earth is the dugong, often referred to as the sea cow. For thousands of years, it has been hunted for its meat and its oil. Today, it is an endangered species, close to extinction. This map shows the few places in the world where the dugong can still be found. Sri Lanka is one of them, and Mannar and Puttalam are amongst the dugong's last remaining footholds. On 31st of January 2012, Sri Lanka joined the international community to become signatory to the Dugong Memorandum of Understanding on the conservation and management of dugongs and their habitats throughout the region, banning the hunting and the selling of dugongs and their products. This MOU operates under the UN Environment Programme. This is one initiative where Sri Lanka can take the lead. The dugong is so rare, so unusual, that any major program would be a path-breaking one. The successful implementation of such a program by any signatory would surely make global headlines. Some of the most important forces deeply concerned with the marine environment are massive private institutions, which in themselves represent deeply influential lobby groups. The Pew Charitable Trust, for example, is one of the richest, most influential private foundations in the USA. In 2009, its annual report valued its assets at $5.8 billion US. The trust also funds the Pew Research Center, the third largest think tank in Washington, after the Brookings and the Center for American Progress. Both these institutions, of course, well known worldwide and have tremendous influence on American foreign policy. So does the Pew Charitable Trust. The Pew Environmental Group is a charitable arm, is the conservation arm of the Pew Charitable Trust. One of its declared aims is to save the marine environment and protect the rich array of wildlife that it supports. In recent years, the Pew Environment Group has focused its attention on the conservation of the shark. Despite its well-established image as a predator, the shark plays an important role in maintaining the balance of the marine ecosystem. For more than 400 years, they have helped regulate the variety and abundance of species below them in the food chain. Losing them could have consequences that affect the entire ocean system. The Pew Group has identified the present moment as the most critical time to prevent the global decline of the shark. They declare that they will work internationally with their coalition partners, that could be anybody, to influence fishing nations. In addition, they will work with nations of Sri Lanka, whose waters still have diverse populations of shark. In line with this aim, the Pew Foundation declared this year, 2013, as its year of the shark. It plans to put forward 3 proposals to protect the shark at the 16th meeting of CITES in Bangkok in March. Sri Lanka still has a large number of sharks in its marine waters. The whale shark here is just one of them and has been frequently sighted in the seas off Kalpita. However, the unregulated nature of fishing is also a source of international concern, and it has already attracted the attention of the Pew campaign. Recently, the group coordinated a meeting in Colombo, visiting the local fishing market in Negombo to obtain further background for its proposals. This is a campaign which Sri Lanka can support. It has a massive and deeply influential institutional partner ready and waiting. It is also located near the area which has been earmarked as a sanctuary. That's the interesting red dot there. If we move fast enough and the Pew campaign does succeed, Sri Lanka could well find itself at the very heart of a massive international program to save sharks. As the headline says, it's big business, it's big news, it's a big vote. In 2013 will be the year of the shark at CITES. The benefits of such a program are there for all to see. In July 2011, another island nation, the Bahamas, joined Maldives and Honduras in prohibiting the commercial fishing of sharks. The effect of this was to create almost 900,000 square miles of ocean, where these animals can now swim safely. The action was so unusual and spectacular that it created international headlines. The Bahamas acts to protect sharks. These are the words of the Pew Global Shark Conservation Campaign head. Today's announcement permanently protects more than 40 shark species in Bahamian waters. We applaud the people and the government of the Bahamas for being bold leaders in marine conservation. Protecting our marine species as part of an international conservation campaign will make it so much easier to protect our own fishing resources. This kind of participation will help us build a consensus against the trawling fleets that all the other speakers have touched on. And at present, we seem absolutely powerless to stop. Being part of an international conservation campaign will garner empathy, which will provide vital ammunition. This was the strategy which India under Jawaharlal Nehru perfected in the 1950s. Even if you are weak and poor, occupy the moral higher ground. It will enhance your profile, give you room to maneuver. The environment is an area where everybody has to be on the line. The only major initiative which Sri Lanka has produced in the management of natural resources in the Indian Ocean is IOMAC, the Indian Ocean Marine Affairs Corporation Organization, formed in 1985 to bring about collective ocean management to the region. It included several states in the Indian Ocean and outside. IOMAC also managed to launch several trailblazing management measures, such as the banning of large-scale drift nets, the initiation of the process, the establishment of an Indian tuna management framework. Up till now, it has been the only Sri Lankan organization to exploit Sri Lanka's unique position. While promoting cooperation amongst its member states and managing its marine resources, IOMAC is also focused on regional cooperation, the forging of intra-regional contacts. It has also worked closely with a number of highly influential international organizations. In many ways, it is perhaps an initiative too far ahead of its time. It has also had to contend with fierce regional opposition. Nevertheless, along the way, IOMAC has created a platform for member states to foster significant political connections with influential international bodies and political figures. These connections can open doors to more opportunities. As a geopolitical tool, the potential of IOMAC is immense. This tool is still available to us, and there is still time for us to utilize it. The rest of the world tells us this century is the age of the Indian Ocean. So as the rest of the world tells us, so it must be so. Perhaps the time has come to consider something which we created to chart our own future and our own destiny. The effect of IOMAC to establish Sri Lanka as a regional hub are worthy of further study. It is unfortunate that there has only been one serious study of this pioneering initiative. The IMAC Secretariat is one of the few environmental hubs based in Colombo. Sri Lanka must aim to establish many more regional hubs in the field of conservation and environment. The geography of our position, the richness of our marine resources demand it. In this context, it is saddening to note that the regional headquarters of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, has been shifted from Colombo to Bangkok. Sri Lanka has surely lost a major opportunity here. Located at the very heart of the International Whaling Convention Sanctuary, Sri Lanka in the last few years has gained international prominence for the richness and variety of its marine life, its blue whales, killer whales, and its dolphins. In this context, the importance of doing research, encouraging research, and making research facilities available should be a priority. Sri Lanka must reassess and reformulate its attitude to foreign research and foreign researchers. Research and publication are important global levers. We must be prepared to use them. Despite its immense potential, only a limited amount of work has been done on Sri Lanka's marine environment. A series of seminal studies by Mr. Arjun Rajasuriya about Sri Lanka's coral reefs, publications by Anuki Lankakor about Sri Lanka's whales and dolphins, and media programs on the blue whale. All these represent only the tip of what could be and should be a mountain of serious scholarship by Sri Lankans. Without serious research of this kind, Sri Lanka cannot hope to establish itself as an environmental or even a regional hub. We cannot afford to leave this vital strategic option in the hands of purely local bodies, agencies, non-state players. The diplomatic service can function as a pivot which can function externally and deliver internally. Government should be engaging in international environmental fora through its diplomatic service. At the very least, as Mr. Abe Gunasekar pointed out the other day, it is important that we are represented at these fora. In this field, the small cadre of world-class officers that we do have could make a huge difference. This is a battle Sri Lanka can win. If it does, it'll become easier to fight other battles. Do something really well, be recognized for it, and it'll give you a foundation on which to build. Another institution which can be utilized is the Sri Lanka Navy. And no, I'm not just saying by saying because you're here. It is that Sri Lanka Navy is the only body in Sri Lanka with the experience of the marine environment at all levels. It has trained personnel, infrastructure, seagoing craft, and equipment. Also has a security interest to know what is happening in the seas around Sri Lanka. The history of shark conservation and research begins with a very interesting story. It begins with the US Navy. The largest shark attack in recorded history occurred on the 30th of July, 1945, when Japanese torpedoes struck and sank the American cruiser US Indianapolis. Approximately 900 sailors donned life jackets and went into the sea. At sunrise next day, the shark attacks began. The men were not rescued for 5 days. By then, 579 had died, an unknown number chewed to pieces by sharks. Now, the Discovery Channel attributes the attacks to the oceanic white-tipped shark species. However, it also pointed out that most of the deaths were due to exposure, salt poisoning, and thirst, with only the dead being dragged off by sharks. Appalled by this episode, the US military invested massive sums in shark research, funding the search above all for a shark repellent. Its research on sharks still continues at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, where it is highly classified. Sri Lanka Navy, in this post-war era, could find itself a new role. If nothing else, it will help create an extra dimension and build a new profile. The use of CPMs, confidence-building measures, play an important role in the measures used to de-escalate tensions in conflict situations. They build up a consensus which lead to cooperation. We all talk about the use of CBMs in conflict resolution. What a CBM does, it gives you the capacity to work together towards a commonly desired goal. This creates the opportunity to build a relationship. The environment is a commonly desired goal. It can function as a platform, a CBM, a confidence-building measure. This could be the beginnings of a new positive perception, which will associate Sri Lanka with very different things. To use marketing terms, it is in effect an exercise in rebranding. the change in the brand label. What does this do? It gives us a foundation on which to build, a platform and a moral authority with which to speak. In this context, successful campaigns to preserve our marine environment, if properly administered and fully implemented, can be very effective. They may give Sri Lanka the capability she badly needs to reach out and engage. It represents an opportunity for discussion. When we engage, the lines are always open. It represents an opportunity for discussion, interaction, and perhaps understanding on both sides. A cardinal principle of diplomacy is that if you can't agree on the big things, maintain momentum by talking about other issues where you can agree. Upon winning the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize, the former US Vice President Al Gore used the occasion to warn of global warming. We face, he said, a true planetary emergency. The climate crisis is not a moral issue, it is a moral and a spiritual challenge to all humanity. Nature truly transcends all boundaries. Like the tsunami, it reminds us that we are all similar. Surrounded as we are by the sea, Sri Lanka's marine environment could be a potent geopolitical tool. At a time when Sri Lanka appears to become more and more isolated, the cause of the environment represents an instrument through which we can reach out in a common cause. When we reach out in a common cause, we can engage. Al Gore went on to say, it is the most dangerous challenge we've ever faced, but it is also the greatest opportunity we have to make changes. We have the opportunity to make changes.
It was a great insight on the geopolitical tool. I would like to call upon our next speaker. That's Mr. Patrick T. Evans, FAO representative for Sri Lanka and Maldives. He will speak of sustainable management of the Bay of Bengal large marine ecosystem.
Everyone, welcome. Good afternoon to everyone. Mr. Chairman, distinguished speakers, excellencies, distinguished participants, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. By way of introduction, let me say that it's a pleasure to be with everyone here today and to see such a high level of interest in this subject and such a good lineup of speakers that our chairman has assembled. For myself, I have been serving as the FAO representative here in Sri Lanka for the last 4.5 years, covering Sri Lanka and the Maldives, meaning that I'm in my final months. My organization likes to move people about 5 years in time. I've been fortunate in this period of time to have witnessed the arrival of peace in this country. It's been a very tragic decades of warfare that all of you understand only too well. I came in at the end and I had the fortunate opportunity to travel around this entire country, to work in all regions, to work with many good people, and to work in the sectors of agriculture, livestock, environment, and fisheries. Given that our theme today is the ocean resources, I'm going to briefly tell you about what we've been doing with fisheries since I've been here, leading into this project that I will highlight. When I arrived mid-2008, we were doing a coastal resource assessment at the time. Mr. Arjan of NARA was a partner agency. We were looking at resources such as lobster, conchs, prawns, bestamere, and ornamental fish in the south, east, and west of the country during the period of conflict. All of this has gone into a very comprehensive fishery atlas, which is available. Also, about the same time, I started working with our chairman here, when he was working with the Ceylon Fishery Harbor Corporation. And we had a program developing Fish landing sites. It was tsunami money. We're still looking at all these communities who had suffered losses from the tsunami. We built more than 50, and we've still been building some up in the north. Just last week, the Minister of Fisheries officially opened 4 more sites funded by the Canadian government, implemented through FAO. We've also started working in a very important area, which was post-harvest loss reduction. We worked with NIPNI, and we provided training inputs for multi-day boat fishery operators, for small fishing boats, and then the entire value chain right down to the guy selling fish on the street. We're trying to reach all aspects. How best to reduce losses of fish that are being harvested. We've also built a number of fish hatcheries. We set up a prawn hatchery in Hambantota that's now producing 14 million prawns per year. Freshwater prawns. These are stocked in tanks and with families. We have supported the development of a sea bass hatchery in Chilao. We are soon to construct a milkfish hatchery in Batikalo. We are currently building a nursery with the National Aquaculture Development Authority, NACTA, up in Multibu. We will build 2 more nurseries in the coming years in Manor and Labunia. And we are working to provide support with NARA and NACTA for development of mariculture in Manor over the next 4 years. We are also working to help develop livelihoods of small fishermen in the lagoons from the Gumbo, Chilao, and Putlam. Ongoing programs dealing with mangrove management, dealing with co-management of fishery resources. And finally, this Bay of Bengal large marine ecosystem project that I would like to share with you right now. This is a project involving 8 different countries surrounding the Bay of Bengal. It's a $12 million program that started in 2009. This is the first phase of it. It started in 2009, runs through next year, 2014. Most of the money has come from the Global Environmental Facility, but these are the other donors who have been supporting this program. The objective is to improve the lives of the coastal populations through better regional management of the Bay of Bengal environment and its fisheries. The outcomes that this project is striving for are improved governance, capacity development, improved regional cooperation, enhanced knowledge base, ecosystem approach to fisheries management implemented. Sri Lanka is working through this project to develop capacity and understanding on implementing the ecosystem approach to fishery management. As noted earlier, we have a very extensive coastline. Sri Lanka is very fortunate to have over 40,000 square kilometers of continental shelf, and there's very large exclusive economic zone of over 500,000 square kilometers. 2 main types of fisheries we are dealing with in this country. The coastal fishery on the continental shelf and slope, where small to large fish are being harvested, pelagic fish as well as bottom-dwelling fish, other invertebrates. And this is 60% of the marine catch in this country. It's where 90% of the boats are operating, and most of this is consumed domestically. It's the second fishery is the deep sea offshore fisheries that is targeting the export market. It is developing and expanding, mainly tuna, but they're taking sharks, billfish as well. Current statistics are that there are 165,000 active fisher folk in this country, and that some 650,000 people are involved with fishery-related activities for their livelihoods. And there's 42,000 fishing boats. So this is one boat for every square kilometer of a continental shelf here. This chart, I had asked my colleagues who are implementing this project to provide, but it's outdated because it goes up to 2008. But the annual harvest of this country was about 300,000 metric tons when I arrived. You see how the majority is from coastal area, then the offshore and aquaculture as well, freshwater fisheries. The current statistics that the government was able to provide me this morning are that 440,000 metric tons were harvested in 2011. It's going up. The target of the Ministry of Fisheries is 680,000 metric tons by the year 2016. By developing a stronger offshore fisheries, focusing more on aquaculture development. Strengths in fishery management. These I pulled from my colleagues who have been working on the Bay of Bengal project. This is what they're listing. The availability of management plans, good legal frameworks and planning systems, good numbers of staff, strong commitment to extension activities, and fisheries communities are reasonably well represented through fisheries cooperatives and societies. These are the strengths of fisheries in this country. Weaknesses, need for clearer policy directions in fishery management, poor compliance with fisheries rules and regulations, inadequacies in fleet development, insufficient development in staff performance, lack of institutional and human capacity to undertake key tasks. So this is from the team working on the Bay of Bengal program here currently. But they also say improvements can be made across the board, addressing all weaknesses under sustainable development frameworks such as the ecosystem approach to fisheries management. By definition, the ecosystem approach to fisheries management strives to balance diverse societal objectives by taking into account the knowledge and uncertainties of biotic, abiotic, and human components in ecosystems and their interactions, and applying an integrated approach to fisheries within ecologically meaningful boundaries. The reality in the Bay of Bengal right now is there are some 450 million people, almost 500 million people, who depend on aquatic resources for their food security and their livelihoods. This is a huge number of people. Sri Lanka is located in this region of the largest population on the planet. The increasing population is putting greater and greater pressure on the natural resources. We're experiencing overfishing, as has been shown, destructive fishing practices, pollution. It's a huge challenge, huge challenge. This project, the Bay of Bengal, they're in the first phase and working hard at laying the foundation for a coordinated program of action designed to improve the lives of the coastal populations through improved regional management of the Bay of Bengal environment and its fisheries. Finally, let me say that I think everyone here is very fortunate because in Sri Lanka we have a very well-educated population. And you have a wealth of natural resources, from the water in the tanks, to the soils, to the surrounding ocean. There is so much potential here. The economy is good. It's growing. Indicators are good. It's just planning and good management. This is what is essential to ensure that the productivity of all your resources, from the land and to the sea, are capable of sustaining all the future generations to come in this country. I wish you success and thank you.
Also from Bianca here. So that's great. We have the from the that's coming up in the second session. We understood that this because since my team came up with this whole idea of goal running, grow and so that second session will be. If there's any questions, and we'd like
about this Indian calling issue, are going to have any international treaties we can help out to settle the situation?
Do you have anybody in the panel that's
Well, I believe if we really want, we can go to an international tribunal and make our complaints heard. But then we don't want to really antagonize India too much on this issue. I mean, no one right now deny that the Indian trawlers are fishing in Sri Lankan waters. And they were denying for a long time that they are not using steel hull fishing boats. Even that is proven that they are in fact using steel hull boats. There is a young Dutch gentleman who was in the country, he has done a study and he proved that there is a huge rise in the catch in Tamil Nadu, and that is the time they introduced the steel hull boats. And for your information, Tamil Nadu is the largest exporter of shrimp to the world. And where does the shrimp come from? From Sri Lankan water. But, right? So this is a real predicament. I mean, we cannot really, I really don't want to go into the details, but this problem is not going to go away. Even if we go to a tribunal and get a verdict, then how do we really implement it? We have to use force to implement it. And the moment we use force, or the show of force, that is enough to make a big cry in the Tamil Nadu circles, because this is not really a fisherman's issue, this is a political issue, and this is a political issue for India. I mean, the central government of India, they are a coalition government, so they cannot just turn a blind eye to what is happening in Tamil Nadu. So there are ways and means of addressing a similar issue, because there is a clearly demarcated international maritime boundary line. I mean, when someone is crossing that, that is a violation of our territorial integrity. But we cannot just do that because it is more complicated than that. I don't know, maybe
take this and
thank you for excellent and very diversified presentations. My question is to guest speaker number 1 and number 4. On one side, we hear that the fish stocks are sharply decreasing. Big fish are not spawning, or all the fish are spawning younger and younger, so producing less eggs. And on the other side, we hear that the objective for 2016 is 680,000 tons. So, is this objective done with like the concept of sustainable fish stock management? And is that a realistic objective in terms of good management of the resources? Thank you.
For the fish stocks in Sri Lanka, it's obvious that fish stocks are very big. If you go to the fish market and you observe the size of the fish they are fishing and the amount of the yield the fishermen are getting, so the quota is going down. Sri Lanka has for the task to double the fish yield within the next couple of years' time. But in that case, we will look for untapped resources and at the same time increase the fishing effort. So So there's a conflict actually between these two scenarios. But from Ministry of Fisheries, Fisheries Ministry try to develop this to achieve their goals. But the proposals they are putting forward is with conflict with solutions. So sometimes the ones they propose to deploy some abundant buses, about thousands of wagons into the ocean to act as fish aggregating devices and then fish in those areas. So at that time I was able to give the message to the parliament, so parliament members to not to do it and some kind of bad impacts of that. Because the short term is good, nice, not a very topic, but this long term is a disaster to the ocean environment. So that kind of things happen in the last couple of months. But I don't know how the target is achieved. But at the same time, the government, if the target is to achieve, they have to increase the fishing effort. So there's no clear way how to do it. It's said, but it's not clear the actual, the possible ways are not proposed at the moment.
Patrick, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, the target of 680,000 metric tons. The country was harvesting about 300,000 metric tons per year until the war ended. And prior to the start of the war, 40% of the harvest came from the north. As was mentioned, these additional fishery waters have been added to the overall total. And all indications currently are that the effort to catch, we're catching more fish, but it takes more and more effort to catch those fish. And the size is decreasing, as was noted. So the harvest is composed of smaller size fish overall. So whether it is sustainable, this needs to be carefully followed. This is what I think is important in this Bay of Bengal Large Marine Ecosystem Project, because they're looking at all these different factors that go into the overall sustainable harvest of the different fishery resources. So it's still uncertain as to what level is the perfect level for this country. Aquaculture, of course, has a lot of potential, developing freshwater fisheries. And this is going to be expanding more and more in the future.
If you could introduce yourself briefly.
I'm a journalist.
Thank you.
Question is for the commander. You just mentioned some of the diplomatic reasons why it's difficult to move to the tribunal over the Kochi issue. One point I'd like to raise is Philippines is taking China to a tribunal over their issues in the South China Sea. Philippines is a small country. That's one point. The other thing is now even if the tribunal route is not working now, there is an India-Sri Lanka joint commission. Why is it so toothless? Now they talk about, India talks about not harming the fishermen who are caught on this side of the INBL. But our side, Sri Lanka side, does not seem to be making any effort to get any commitment from India to stop the poaching. Why is it so toothless?
Okay, you are right, because there is a joint working group set up to address this issue. And Sri Lankan side always say, please respect the INBL, please respect the International Maritime Boundary Line. And the Indian side always say, don't use violence when our fishermen cross to your area. So there is a kind of a stalemate. And I guess if the answer is very simple, but I fear that the answer is not that simple. So it's not a matter of that we are, of course, there is a working group, and I can tell you very confidently that the accusations have gone down after establishing this joint working group, because there is a debate going on. However, there is a stalemate because we want the respect to the INBL and they want the violence to be not used against the fishermen. In fact, we are not using violence against the fishermen, but we get accused of using violence. So it should take some more time maybe. And also the Indian side is emphasizing always on license fishing. And we say, no, we don't want to give license to you, and this is our fish. We decide what we want to do. But then, practically, thousands of boats coming into our waters and taking our catch. And I think it was explained the environmental damage to the marine ecosystem. I don't know, I'm sure you agree that the fish in the Indian side is gone because overexploited. And because of the war, there was a time the fish were dying because they were getting old in Sri Lanka. We didn't catch them. So, but the issue now is actually the local fishermen are getting affected, and the local fishermen are also blaming the Navy and the government for not taking enough action, and sometimes they are trying to take the law into their own hand. So that is a bit of a dangerous situation because that can lead to clashes. So I guess the answers are not simple in this very contentious issue. Thank you, ma'am.
We'll take another 3 questions.
Thank you. My name is Lucky Dasanayaka. I'm a renewable energy entrepreneur. And I'm here because I was interested to understand what you're doing. The question is twofold. You talk about, the Navy gentleman talks about the fact that you have all these issues. And Dr. Delgado talked about the possibility of strategic thinking and using the environment as a platform for Sri Lanka to communicate on. So the simple question I have is, can you not declare that whole area as some kind of marine park? Yeah. Where thereby you don't have to, because taking people to court and having headaches in international UN type entities just doesn't get Sri Lanka very far. But I think if you go on an environmental platform and say this whole area is some kind of marine park where you have very few fishermen allowed to fish, you solve all your problems in one go. And at the same time, you can actually utilize international opinion about unsustainable fishing, because there's a growing awareness internationally about the practices practiced or accepted in the West as actually just being totally detrimental to the planet. So that's just my observation. Perhaps you can let me know what you think of that.
Thank you. Great question.
That's an excellent idea. That's exactly the kind of idea that we're looking for. And that's exactly what a think tank like this should be doing. It works all the way.
It's all coming to me. Well, ma'am, I do agree. That's one area where we should really make our voices or make our concerns heard, because this poaching is really damaging the marine environment. If this continues for another maybe few years, we will not have a marine ecosystem in the northern waters. So that is one area where we should really, academics should play a role, the media should play a role. It's not really a naval matter, it should be a country's effort in projecting this as an environmental disaster.
Actually, from Indian side, we have declared the area as a marine biosphère reserve. Even they have declared that everything is happening in the they have already fished out everything. So now our side, we have now Science and National Science Foundation putting a proposal to UNESCO to declare the Sri Lankan side as a marine biosphère reserve. In that case, we don't want to stop fishing, but still allowing fishermen to fish there, but in some kind of controlled way. But even if we declare the same area as the NAV under UNESCO, these problems will be going on, because even if the Navy with full armed force is there, if the boats, thousands of boats coming by force and crossing them, they become what to do. So that's a problem actually. When we go there and when you see the actual problem, they come in swarms and just cross Navy. Navy they are with full liquid gun boats, well liquid.
But.
So for what? So that's a problem.
Yes, I'm sorry to have to address another question.